Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. I am excited to introduce Leandra to you. As you will hear from the podcast, we have known each other for a very long time, but only recently reconnected via a mutual friend. It was during a coffee date about a year ago that I became aware of Leandra's profound sense of spirituality, and am happy to have her here to hear what her journey was like. I trust that you will enjoy this with me. Hey Leandra, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Freddie, and you?
I'm well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. Leandra, we have come a long way in a very strange way, actually, haven't we? So I met Leandra when I went to high school. She was a year ahead of me, and through another friend, I kind of slotted in with your group. And then we started partying together. You were one of the girls who taught me to dance. Can you remember that?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not surprised. I used to love dance. Well,
Yes.
I love dancing.
I used to. I can't see myself doing it anymore. I feel like a complete idiot now. Yeah, so you were one of the ones that taught me to dance. And did we have loads of parties?
Every weekend, at least one.
True.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yes.
Party animals.
And you were, what I remember from you at school, you were, how can I put it? You were lovely and friendly, quite an academic.
Yes, I was a jack of all trades,
Yeah,
actually.
because you also played hockey.
I was the hurdles girl
Yes.
ahead of you.
The hurdles girl
the
ahead
hurdles
of you.
Well, 1 year. Not running ahead of you.
I would have preferred the hurdles person ahead of you.
Well, I was the girl.
Yes, running
Henny,
hurdle.
our
Yeah.
mutual friend, was the boy in
Absolutely,
the year that.
yeah.
Yeah, I played hurdle, athletics really, and tennis, and I loved school and academics. My children can't understand it when I say to them, "Yeah, it's
I wish you could see my
exams."
frown now. What?
My kids don't understand. I get so excited when it's exams. I just love the challenge of excelling in academics. It was like a personal goal that I set for myself, and culturally, I was sort of very much an all-rounder at school.
Yeah, and I think that's how we kind of connected, because we were always kind of doing the same type of thing.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And that was awesome.
Yeah.
I can't recall ever having had a conversation with you about any sense of your belief system, your spirituality, or anything like that. We were in a Christian national education system, so were you part of that vibe? Did you grow up in church and with Christianity, or what was your background in that regard?
Yeah, I have a typical Dutch Reformed background. I was quite active in the youth groups and things at church, confirmation at 16. And then after school at university, I used to occasionally still go to church. I wasn't very fond of going to church ever, actually.
No, was I.
So the moment I got away from my parents, I sort of didn't go to church that much. But I had times in my early 20s where I was very much drawn to church and religion. I somehow understood it as the only way of living out my spirituality at the time. I then started experimenting with going to more charismatic churches and that. But then I got married at a very young age, and I went to live in Plettenberg Bay. And my mom came to live in Plet not long after that, and she used to drag me off to the Methodist church whenever she went. She was quite a churchgoer.
Was your mom Afrikaans?
Yeah.
Okay, so why did you go to Methodist church?
Because she was married to an English-speaking person. Yeah, so I've always had a profound interest in spirituality, but I wasn't very fond of religion.
Last night I shared at an NA meeting on spiritual journeys. I was asked by a friend. Something that I'll never forget was before an athletics meeting, I was always so nervous. I was frantic. And my mother would always say, "Oh, it's okay, my child, just pray." And I used to say to her, "But Mom, all 7 other athletes are also praying."
Yeah. I always think about that. Yeah.
Why would God bestow kind of me with the grace of winning or whatever it was that I wanted?
I don't know. Maybe it takes turns or...
Yeah, whatever it was. And my mother got so angry with me that how could you have such a lack of belief? And for me, that was the lack of belief. It was reality.
Yeah. All 7 of those guys might be having the same conversation with their mother at the moment.
Exactly. So for me, it was always a thing of, why me? Why would I get it?
Yeah, I know exactly what
So
you
maybe it was just because I was such a extremely selfish, but I wanted my own God.
Yeah, personal.
Personal Jesus.
Yeah. Not one who takes turns. I want to win every time.
As you know, I wanted that.
Yeah.
And did I not get it? I was very, very, very upset and angry. So that was one thing that I remember. And looking back, I just didn't have that type of unwavering faith. I always doubted.
For me, it was more of a matter of fairness. I desperately wanted to believe in the Jesus that I culturally grew up with.
Yeah.
Because I suppose we all have a yearning to find some kind of comfort in some concrete spiritual form.
Yeah.
But to me, it never made sense, just from a purely fairness point of view, why God would favor some people over others. Why I still sort of see the Christian religion as one that forces you to choose, and the exclusion of others at the same time. So it never made sense to me why a little Buddhist baby would be condemned to eternal doom or hell or whatever, just because it never had the opportunity to know Jesus. And to me, that just never made sense. So I thought, well, if that's the ultimate condition, then I cannot call myself a reborn Christian.
Yeah.
Christian I'll always be, because that's the culture I grew up in.
Yeah.
That's the one I understand. So I just left it. I just left it at that. It was just a decision that I made. I thought, you know what, if that's, it's not that I never rebelled against it. I wasn't anti it. I just sort of got on with my own life without paying too much attention to that. Didn't feel like I lacked anything. I had a sort of a peace about my own spirituality.
Okay.
But it was only in my late 30s that I really developed a very direct relationship with God.
Okay. How old were you when you got married? You said very young.
I got married twice, actually. I got married once when I was 23, almost 24, to a wonderful man, an artist who was much older than me. He was a wonderful mentor. In fact, through my association with him, I began a career in art dealing. I became an art dealer. And I had 3...
Take me to your dealer.
My dealer, art dealer. I dealt him.
I had one of those, but he didn't deal in art.
Yeah, no, this was quite innocent.
Also, my problem in life was I'm autistic, so I wanted to say take me to your leader, but I always ended asking take me to your dealer. Blame
the dyslexia. Anyway, so he was a wonderful mentor.
Where did you meet him?
In Plettenberg Bay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there I was actually on my way to America to go and live there, and I went there on holiday with my parents for the last time now. Before I went to
changing plans. Wait,
big
stop.
Change in plans.
Cancel the visa.
No, it was love at first sight. And
Are you serious?
I just ended
awesome.
up staying in Plettenberg Bay, and that's where he was based. And I subsequently spent the next 23 years of my life living in Plate and bringing up my kids there and everything. It was a fantastic.
It's a beautiful place.
It was
I love
just,
Plate as well.
you don't get a more idyllic upbringing for children, beautiful place to live, wonderful community, the most unbelievable. I suppose that's why I still have a love for smaller places, small towns. It's that sense of community, of support.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so Mike and I got married, had 7 very happy years together.
I thought you were going to say 7 children.
No, that was the issue. We couldn't have children. And that's why we finally broke up, because he was just the most gracious person I've ever known. And when he realized that, to me, having children was really a life purpose thing. I couldn't imagine my life without children. You know, some people can. And for me, it was just, and I still believe it's my major purpose in life is to specifically these 2 children, to be their mother. He just said to me, look, I don't want to cost you your life. Go. And we're still extremely close.
Is it?
Love each other to bits and pieces and always be there to support each other. Well, it's very, you know, when you do have a breakup like that and you remain close, it's because you want to, not because you have to. It's very much a choice thing, whereas when you have children and you break up with somebody, you might hate that person's guts, and sometimes it's better to just move away from a relationship that's destructive or negative in your life, and you can't if you have children. So at least without the children, there's the choice aspect.
I always seem to get along with my exes quite well, and I always kind of had a sense of pride in that, because I always said it shows that I use the right criteria when I choose partners. So even if I can't have them as a life partner or as a boyfriend, the characteristics they have are still awesome. So it's still quite nice to have them in my life.
That's ideal, I suppose. Oh,
so
that's wonderful.
I always saw that as a kind of feather in my cap.
So you don't question your judgment?
No, these were the boyfriends that I had. But generally, my choices of potential partners were stuffed. I once had a psychologist who said to me, you know, Freddie, actually there's nothing wrong with the people you choose. It's just that you choose the wrong people.
For you.
For you. Yeah. So move on from there.
Yeah.
So while you're in Plett, Mom was there attending Methodist Church. Did you enjoy the Methodist Church?
I did. You know what? I enjoy all sacred places.
Okay.
I like, even now, although I haven't been in a church for years and years and years, I sometimes think, oh, you know what, it'd be nice to go to church. Just to be in a sacred place where you can connect with spirit. I don't think it matters whether it's a church or maybe anywhere beautiful in nature next to a waterfall or a temple or a synagogue or anywhere where you can feel, and I suppose you do feel the presence of God in holy places. And that particular church was nice. It had a very good, nice people. I used to just like being there, but I like all holy places. Yeah.
There's an NA meeting in the Central Methodist Mission on Green Market Square in Cape Town, and it was one of the first meetings I started attending when I came out of rehab. And they were so welcoming, and the pastor was a young guy and he was awesome. And they were so nice to NA renting a room from them. You had to walk through the church and go upstairs through a small little room there where we met. And at stages we would open the door to the meeting room and there would be cake for us. Or a whole table, they would be celebrating something, and a whole table with snacks and cold drinks for us. It was absolutely lovely. And I always thought that this is what I thought religion should feel like. I felt so good about the connection we had with them, and also thought that I wonder if I grew up with that type of welcoming feeling. I never really felt welcome in church as a child. I just didn't.
Did you also grow up Dutch Reformed?
Yeah, I felt judged.
Well, that's always when I try and explain to people, because I've brought my children up extremely spiritual. I mean, those kids were meditating and doing yoga by the time they were 3 years old.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I can tell you stories about my son. My son running off to his room with an orange shawl over his shoulder, saying, "I have to go release my anger." And then I used to walk into his bedroom and he'd be sitting on top of his bunk bed in a yogi pose with his little legs crossed, with his orange shawl around him like a little monk, with his eyes closed. And he was very good at this releasing thing because like 5 minutes later he'd be back and he'd throw the shawl over and he'd say, I've released my anger. And he'd go out and he'd play and he'd really be, he wouldn't be angry anymore. And it'd be
It's so funny.
Yeah, so, judgment. Yeah, and when they ask me, or when they have asked me in the past, when they started going to school, they started realizing that people were going to church and they were talking about Jesus, and the school that they went to was quite religion-based and all that, and they started praying in class and talking about, having religious
education
religious
studies
and stuff.
or whatever.
So they would come home and ask me about Jesus and church and why we don't go to church and so on. And I started telling them about my own youth and my own experience with the church that I went to. And I don't believe that judgment has a place in religion.
Yeah.
I don't think that God is a God of judgment.
Yeah.
And in the church that I grew up, I very much, like you say, I very much felt threatened by God. God was very judgmental, the God that I knew. God decided whether you were going to heaven or to hell. God decided whether you were good or bad. And there was very little that you could actually do to ever be good enough.
Yeah. Something that I always questioned was somewhere in the Ten Commandments, isn't there in the Afrikaans Bible something that says, ek die Here jou God is 'n jaloerse God? And I always used to think, but he says he's jealous, but we taught not to be jealous. Isn't jealousy not good?
Yeah. It's probably the most negative emotion.
And I could also not understand how you're supposed to fear God but love God. It's kind of, those two for me were mutually exclusive. I really had an intellectual problem with a lot of stuff that we were taught.
Well, that's what I meant earlier when I said, when I actually thought about it, all these things, I just finally, when I had to now make up my mind, am I now going to be a church-going Christian who does everything, give my heart to God and accept Jesus my only Savior? That was the problem that I had, was the accepting of the exclusivity thing and the price that I had to pay. And for me, it was an intellectual price. It was giving up common sense.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do that.
Okay.
I couldn't authentically say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to ask questions anymore, and I'm just going to do what they say. And you, little Buddhist baby, are going to go to hell because you have not accepted Jesus as your only Savior, regardless of the fact that you've never heard of him.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And until today, I understand when my kids say to me, Mom, you know what, I'll listen to you as long as you make sense.
Do they do that?
They do that. I will listen to you as long as you make sense. And I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So I've got to find a way to make sense then.
There's your challenge. So how and where did you meet things like yoga and meditation and those type of things? Was that through the art scene in Pet?
No, Freddie, that's a very, very interesting story. And we need a whole day for this.
Can we concise it?
You know what? I got married again after Mike, and I had my 2 children with Barry. I went to live in Germany for 6 years. And
So no wonder you disappeared off the radar.
Anyway,
Where did you meet Barry?
I knew Barry since I was about 15. He's an opera singer, and he used to sing with my brother, who's also a singer. And they were doing an opera, and I went there with my mom one day backstage, and there he was. So I met him when I was about 15, and then we met up again later years and fell in love and got married and had the 2 kiddies. And unfortunately, that marriage didn't last, and I came back to South Africa. He stayed there.
Okay.
While I was living in Germany, he was doing an opera in a place called Heidesheim, and the director of the opera gave him some books by Sai Baba. Subsequently, many years later, a very strange way that everything came together. He was an Indian spiritual teacher.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. And this guy was a follower of Sai Baba, and he gave Barry some books with basically just quotes from Sai Baba, beautiful spiritual stuff, like daily pieces that you can read. And strangely enough, Barry was a little bit into the things, and he used to read some of them to me. And I thought, yeah, very nice words, and that didn't have much of an impact on me at the time. And then when I moved back to South Africa, to Plettenberg Bay, I became involved. That's really where my big interest in natural medicines came from. My daughter became very ill, and I met up with a naturopath. And he happened to be a follower of Sai Baba as well.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't make the connection at all at the time. And one day I had a storeroom off my house in Plet. I walked into this little storeroom. I was looking for something, and it was a big mess, like storerooms are. And as I lifted something up, this book fell on my foot. And I looked down, and it was one of these Sai Baba books. And I bent down and I picked it up. And I took it into the house. I opened it and I started. It was in German. Now, I did German at school and at university, and then lived in Germany for 6 years. This book was in German. I picked this book up and I started reading it from back to front, and it just resonated with me. This is now many, many years after I heard about it for the first time, or saw the book for the first time. Then I find out, but this naturopath friend of mine, who was also like a mentor, he taught me everything I know about, well, most things. He really ignited the interest in natural medicine and alternative healing methods and everything in me. And coincidentally, well, at the time I thought, oh, this guy is also into Sai Baba. So that was another thing we had in common, and used to talk about it a lot. Because Sai Baba was a Hindu, I suppose, I suddenly developed this profound interest in Eastern philosophies.
Okay.
And I started doing yoga, but I didn't even know I was doing yoga. This friend of mine, a naturopath friend of mine, one night we made a fire at my house. We were sitting together, and I started just stretching. I'm very cat-like since I was little. Now that I think about it, I was always stretching, doing back bends. But I do believe that there's something in me that goes way back. And I don't know if it's got to do with past lives, and I don't know what your thoughts on past lives and things are, but he looked at me and he said, I didn't know you do yoga. And I said, no, I'm not doing yoga, I'm just stretching. And he said to me, you are doing perfect advanced yoga moves. I was almost 40 at the time. I was 37, 38 years old. And you are doing perfect yoga poses in perfect sequence. You've done this before. And with the yoga, with meditation being part of yoga, I understood the entire yoga, what it was all about. Yoga is not just about stretching. From the first time I sat down in meditation, I could literally meditate for 20 minutes without mind clutter. There was a memory there of something that was well, I couldn't compare it to anything, but once I started learning more about it and reading, I realized how difficult it was for some people and how they had to practice for years.
I still struggle. Meditation doesn't come naturally to me.
I just understood.
That's fantastic.
To me, that was it. It was like the judgment God, the God of my youth disappeared for me then. And I felt free to have a completely new relationship with God. Not through religion, but through spirituality, a direct experience of spirituality. And for me, that came through the Eastern way of... I finally had a practice through yoga and meditation that made sense to me. Mom, if it makes sense. God was speaking to me. I wasn't speaking to God like through prayer. God was speaking to me, and it became a two-way relationship. Yeah, from there on, my spirituality just grew and grew and grew. It's a very personal thing.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And did you actually teach the children, or did they kind of just join in? Just osmosis. They saw what Mom did and they copied it.
My kids grew up with this very much an understanding of spirit. They never really understood anything else. I used to speak about past lives. I really do believe in past lives. It just, again, it makes sense to me. The past life belief to me means that you've always got another chance. It confirms to me that God is a forgiving God. Yeah. You always have a second chance. You always have another chance. You can't really screw up because your spirit keeps on evolving. You can keep on like your book, you all you have to do is take the layers off.
Yeah.
And they did grow up in a sort of unconventional, they grew up with meditation. Anyway, it gave me an opportunity from a very young age to teach them about tolerance, that, we live in a world with lots of different things. I've always given them the freedom to go to church if they want to. They just don't like it. They, like I used to be as a kid, they get bored because of my slightly different way of dealing with spirituality. I've had to teach them about tolerance from a young age, that it's about tolerance. It's, non-judgment kind of thing.
Was it also that period when you came back to plate and starting meditating and yoga that you also stopped eating meat?
Yes, it all came together.
Okay.
It is somehow now I've gone through another cycle like that. It's almost like I'm back in that same place now, but this is now the second time that I've gone back to that place, and I just simply go off meat. Physically it doesn't feel right. It's almost like your body changes in a way. When you start doing yoga, you want to feel lighter. It's almost like your body becomes light in more than one sense, like light and light.
Yeah.
And the density of meat just somehow doesn't agree with a lifestyle like that.
It's really interesting what you're saying, because I always say once I've done yoga, I feel as if my joints are breathing.
Yes.
And I think that's that lightness feeling that you're talking about.
When I meditate, and when I do yoga, but it has a lot to do with breathing. And somehow I work energetically with light. To me, it's the quickest way of bringing myself into that meditative state is to fill my physical body with light.
Okay.
It sort of helps to clear the clutter out so that the energy can flow. And somehow, I don't know if it's got something to do with that. Once you start filling your physical body and your astral body with light, it's almost like the energy of meat doesn't go with it.
I can understand what you're saying, because meat does make one feel full.
When I started eating meat again, it does make you, if you don't eat a lot of, even if you don't stop eating meat, if you eat less meat and you suddenly start eating meat, it literally feels like you've swallowed a stone.
You feel like an ostrich.
You feel the same. Exactly.
Few stones in your belly.
It feels like you've swallowed a rock, and this rock now somehow has to digest. Another thing, alcohol, for instance, and yoga, if I had as much as a beer or a glass of wine before yoga, the next morning I could literally feel that my muscles couldn't stretch. The acidity from the meat or from the alcohol or from anything that causes acid, even coffee, doesn't go with a yogi lifestyle.
Amazing.
So it's a combination of things. And yoga is not only about the stretching, it's about the breathing, it's about the meditation, it's about the poses, but it's also about embracing the philosophy. And one of a very big no in yoga is a violence lifestyle. And eating meat, it doesn't matter how consciously you do it, there is an aspect of violence connected. So somehow, if you get into the philosophy of yoga, into the lifestyle of yoga, that's another aspect. It's a very loving way to live. It's all about love. It's all about opening your heart. It's all about service. It's all about embracing. It's all about these very light being practices. Yeah. And violence doesn't feature. So non-violence is a very big aspect of yoga. So when you get into a yoga lifestyle, there's no space for acts of violence, whether it's verbal or thoughts, and then eating meat just becomes a no-no.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's not difficult. It was never really a conscious thing. It's just you get to a point where it just doesn't make sense anymore and doesn't feel right.
A new big thing happened in your life, and you swapped the business world for the healing world.
Yes.
What happened? How did that happen? What happened? What are you doing now?
I'm a health coach, studying nutrition, and I'm a qualified body health care practitioner.
Awesome.
So I specialize basically, that's my area of interest, in detoxification through nutrition, and then these therapies that I've learned through the courses that I did, like colonic cleansers, manual, not the colonic irrigation that
Okay.
it's also a therapy.
Colonic cleanse manual.
Manual. A lot of people look at me with desperate eyes when I talk about colonic.
No.
Yeah.
No. I think I saw a video like that once.
I've done it. It's very effective. I've got my reservations about it, though.
Okay.
I see it as a last resort thing. I would rather try other things first before that, but it is very effective. So manual lymph drainage and reflexology, everything that helps basically aids your digestive system. The digestive system to me is just the most amazing thing, because I believe it's the seat of just about every modern day disease.
Yeah.
Including depression, addictions, illnesses with mental roots.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my area of expertise. But it's always been an interest of mine, actually, thinking about it. I'm very glad that
it sounds like a natural progression type of.
Oh yeah, no. I've always been. My mom actually in the early 70s was into alternative health already.
Okay.
The days
well, that must have been.
she
must have been called a hippie.
Exactly. No, my mom was everything but a hippie. I think she was a pseudo hippie. That's basically how I grew up, with a mom like that in the heyday of antibiotics.
Yeah.
I mean, in the early 70s, antibiotics was still the magic thing. It was only about 20 years after it was discovered, so it was before people realized how harmful it was. My mom just happened to be somebody who believed in the alternative way. So I actually grew up with that. And then when I went to live in Plett in my early 20s, I was very much into health foods, eating healthily. At that time, I remember it was the Fit for Life craze.
Oh yes, I did Fit for Life at some stage as well.
For
Did me
Life.
wonderfully.
Fantastic. I still believe in their way of food, whatever, separating the food groups as.
Distributing your food in categories. You could basically eat everything, just eat them at the right times.
I still believe in that because of the whole idea of different digestive juices for different food groups and stuff. I believe that's one of the reasons why I haven't put on any weight.
Because you look amazing.
Thank you.
At this stage now, do you still exercise?
Yes.
Do you still do yoga, meditate?
Yes, I do. I go to gym because I'm older now, and I believe I need to do some strength training.
Okay.
And I can also feel my body. 10 years ago, I was still carrying kids around in my arms and picking them up.
I want to see you carrying your son around.
No, not now, thank you. He carries me. He does squats with me over his head. He can do 10, 12. Like full deep squats with me on his shoulders.
Are you serious?
And I weigh 60 kilograms. Yeah. No,
oh my word.
And then he can still. I'm the one who eventually goes, I can't breathe. Please stop. No, so I definitely can't carry him around anymore. But I do feel that you need to pay more attention to flexibility and strength as you get older. So I do go to gym. I'm actually inherently quite a lazy person.
Who's not? I hate people who kind of seem as if they're not. It just kind of doesn't seem natural.
I'm not very disciplined. I spend a lot of time convincing myself why I shouldn't exercise.
Debating, negotiating.
And I'm self-motivated, which makes it very difficult. I don't like doing yoga in a group setting. I've always done yoga on my own. Since day one. I'm self-taught. I do yoga as a prepping for meditation.
Okay.
I find that the poses opens up my chakras, my energy centers, so that when I meditate, I can get into the meditative space very quickly and very deeply without having to sit there for 15 minutes and stilling the monkey mind.
Yeah.
So I do yoga both for physical reasons and to prepare myself for meditation.
For me, jogging is like that. I don't want to jog with anybody. Some people say, we have to go for a jog sometime.
Join a group.
No.
Really?
For me, it's my thing. I'm meditative as well. So I don't want to do... And also, it's meditative and... Frankly, I can't talk while I run. Unlike other people who tolerate...
Make small talk.
Run. Yeah. No, God, I'm suffering,
I can hardly breathe.
I'm starting to breathe. I'm trying to breathe here. Leandra, last question, second last question. So as you sit here today, how would you define your spirituality?
How would I define my spirituality? For me, I suppose like I just said, my yoga is my spiritual practice and very unique and one-on-one. That's how I perceive my relationship with spirit.
Awesome.
To be. I don't have the desire to practice it in a group setting. In fact, I feel a bit of a disconnection the moment I'm in a group. I become self-conscious. I feel prescribed, like there's something I should be doing. So I've very much come to peace with it. Until long ago I still had the question, but obviously I want to go to heaven one day, whatever that is. I hope I'm not making a mistake. Because the things that we are taught when we were young, they stick with us.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to break away from it. In my case, it wasn't a rebellious breakaway. It was just a real desire to be authentic in my being. And it's taken me 50 years to become authentic within myself. Yeah. And
to stand in integrity with yourself.
With
That's
myself.
Awesome. Yeah.
And my relationship with God is in that space. It's just me and God.
Awesome.
So it's the most important thing in my life. There is nothing more important. And it truly just feels right to me now. And that's the kind of relationship we want to have with God.
Absolutely. Very nicely said.
A